What does it mean to stand against the shadow when the shadow is older than memory, deeper than stone, and hungrier than despair? In the heart of Middle-earth, where the roots of mountains twist like the sinews of the world, there lies a place called Khazad-dûm, the Dwaro Delph, where light once danced in halls of mithril, and the hammers of the dwarves sang of creation. But light fades, and songs grow silent. Khazad-dûm fell to darkness, its name whispered as Moria, a tomb of greed and sorrow. Yet it was here, in this abyss, that Gandalf the Grey Wanderer and bearer of burdens faced a terror ancient and unyielding, a Balrog, a flame of Udun, a remnant of the world's first rebellion. Why did he stand? What strength did he find in the depths where hope seemed a fool's dream, and the weight of ages pressed against his heart? This is not a tale of battles won or treasures claimed. It is a meditation on the unseen fire that burns in the soul when all else is ash. It is a journey through fear, burden, legacy loss, silence, temptation, faith, and hope, not as lessons but as threads in the tapestry of being. Let us walk then into the dark of Moria, not to recount what was but to seek what endures. For in the clash of light and shadow and the breaking of a wizard's staff, there lies a truth that sings like a star in the void. The air of Moria is heavy, not with the weight of stone alone, but with the memory of what was lost. The Fellowship of the Ring. 9 walkers bound by a desperate purpose tread softly through its ruined halls. Their footsteps echo sharp and small against the vastness of caverns that once rang with the laughter of Durin's folk. Aragorn, son of Arathorn, bears the weight of a crown he does not seek. Legolas, prince of Mirkwood, listens to the silence that deafens the stone. Gimli, son of Gloin, mourns a home he never knew, his heart torn between pride and grief. The hobbits Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin carry a burden both physical and unseen. The ring of power a whisper in their blood, a promise of ruin. Boromir of Gondor wrestles with his own heart, his honor fraying at the edges. And Gandalf, the Grey Pilgrim, leads them all his staff, a frail light against the dark. What does it mean to lead when the path is lost? Gandalf, who is called Mithrandir, the spark of hope, knows the maps of Middle-earth better than most. He has wandered its wilds, counseled its kings, and kindled courage in hearts grown cold. Yet in Moria even he falters. The way is uncertain, the air thick with choices unmade. I have no memory of this place, he says, his voice a thread of weariness. To be a guide is not to know all paths, but to walk them anyway, to bear the eyes of those who follow, to carry their trust as a weight heavier than any ring. Gandalf's strength is not in his lore nor in the fire of his staff, but in his willingness to step forward when the dark is deepest. The Fellowship pauses by a crossroads, 3 passages yawning like mouths of oblivion. The stone is silent, offering no counsel. Gandalf sits, his brow furrowed, his pipe unlit. The hobbits huddle close, their smallness a defiance of the vast dark. Frodo the ring-bearer feels the weight of his charge grow heavier, as if the ring itself knows the depth of Moria's shadow. It whispers to him not in words but in a pull, a hunger, a promise of rest, if only he would yield. Temptation is not a voice but a silence, a space where doubt creeps in, where the heart asks, "What if I am not enough?" In this moment, Gandalf's silence is not defeat but listening. He listens not to the stone, but to something deeper, something that moves beneath the world. Faith in Tolkien's world is not a creed or a doctrine, but a trust in the unseen. Gandalf trusts that the path will reveal itself, not because he is certain, but because he must. To wait in the dark, to hold the light of hope when all seems lost, is a strength that does not shout. It is the strength of roots that cling to stone of stars that burn unseen behind the clouds. The path is chosen not by map, but by instinct, a faint stirring in Gandalf's heart, a memory of light. The Fellowship moves on their steps, a quiet rebellion against despair. But Moria is not a place of rest. The dark watches, and it hungers. The drums begin faint at first, like the pulse of the earth itself. Doom, doom. The sound is not merely noise, but a language, a warning, a summons. The goblins of Moria, twisted remnants of a forgotten age, stir in the shadows. And something else, something older, moves with them. Gandalf's face hardens. He knows what comes, though he does not speak its name. Fear is a shadow that grows in the waiting. The hobbits feel it, their hands trembling on their swords. Boromir feels it, his pride warring with his dread. Even Legolas, whose eyes pierce the dark, feels the weight of an ancient malice. Fear is not the absence of courage, but the ground on which courage is tested. Gandalf, too, knows fear not as a weakness, but as a truth. To face the dark is to know that you may fall, that the light you carry may flicker, that the burden you bear may break you. Yet he stands, his staff a beacon, his voice steady. "Keep close," he says, and in those words is a promise: "I will not leave you." The Fellowship reaches the chamber of Mazarbul, a place of records and ruin. Here the dwarves made their last stand, their story written in blood and stone. Gimli finds the tomb of Balin, his kinsman, and his grief is a cry that echoes through the ages. Loss is not a moment, but a tide that carries the heart away. For Gimli, Moria is not just a place, but a legacy, a dream of glory that crumbled under the weight of greed. The dwarves delved too deep, seeking mithril, seeking wealth, seeking something to fill the hollow places in their souls. And in their seeking, they woke the dark. Tolkien's world is not a place of simple villains. The Balrog is not evil for evil's sake, but a remnant of a rebellion that sought to unmake the world. The dwarves are not villains, but seekers who lost their way. Greed in Moria is not a sin, but a tragedy, a hunger for beauty that forgot its source. Gandalf, reading the Book of Mazarbul, speaks the words of Balin's people. "We cannot get out. The end comes." These are not words of defeat, but of truth. To face the end, to write it down, to leave a mark in the dark is an act of defiance. The dwarves fell, but their story endures, carved in stone, carried in Gimli's heart. The drums grow louder. Doom, doom. The goblins come their eyes like sparks in the dark. The Fellowship fights their swords, a song of steel and fire. Gandalf's staff blazes, his voice a thunder that shakes the stone. But the battle is not the heart of this tale. It is what comes after, when the goblins flee and a new terror rises. The Balrog, a shadow and flame, a creature of the elder days, steps into the light. Its presence is not merely physical, but mythic, a weight that presses against the soul, a reminder of the world's first fall. Gandalf turns to face it. His staff raised, his voice a command. "You cannot pass." These are not words of bravado, but of sacrifice. To stand against the Balrog is to stand against despair itself, to hold the line when all seems lost. Gandalf does not fight for victory, but for time, for the Fellowship to escape, for the ring to move forward, for the world to have one more day. His strength is not in his power, but in his choice. To choose the light knowing it may consume you is the heart of Tolkien's myth. What does it mean to bear a burden? Frodo, watching Gandalf face the Balrog, feels the ring's weight as never before. It is not just gold, but a promise of power, a temptation to reshape the world. Yet Gandalf bears a different burden, not a ring, but a responsibility, a duty to guide, to protect, to sacrifice. His staff breaks, his light falters, and he falls locked in combat with the Balrog into the abyss. The Fellowship flees, their hearts broken, their hope dimmed. But Gandalf's fall is not the end. It is a beginning. In the depths of Moria, where light is a memory and silence is a wound, Gandalf fights on. The Balrog is not just a foe, but a mirror, a reflection of the fire that burns in all who seek to shape the world. Gandalf's strength is not in his victory, but in his endurance, in his refusal to yield. He falls through fire and water, through darkness and despair, and yet he rises not as the gray, but as the white, a light reborn. This is not a triumph, but a revelation, a truth that strength is not found in power, but in the heart that dares to stand. The Fellowship, unaware of Gandalf's fate, carries on their grief a weight heavier than stone. Frodo feels the ring's pull grow stronger, its whispers louder. Sam, ever faithful, walks beside him, his heart a quiet fire. Aragorn leads his doubt, a shadow he does not name. Legolas listens to the wind, seeking a song that is not there. Gimli mourns his axe, a vow of memory. Boromir struggles his honor, a fraying thread. Merry and Pippin, small and brave, carry their fear like a badge. The ring moves forward, but the dark grows deeper. What strength did Gandalf find in Khazad-dûm? It was not the strength of swords or spells, but of silence, of faith, of sacrifice. It was the strength to stand when the shadow falls, to bear the light when the dark is deepest, to fall and rise again. This is not a tale of endings, but of beginnings, of a fire that burns in the heart, a light that endures in the dark, a song that echoes through the ages. And so we walk on into the shadow, seeking the strength that Gandalf found, not to conquer, but to carry on. The road is long and the dark is deep. The fellowship, broken but unbowed, moves toward Lothlorien, where the light of the elves offers rest, but not peace. The ring's weight grows, and Frodo's heart falters. What does it mean to carry a burden that cannot be shared? In the silence of Moria, Gandalf found an answer not in words, but in fire. And so the tale continues not as a story, but as a song, a whisper of hope in the dark. The shadow of Moria lingers, a wound in the heart that does not fade. The fellowship, diminished by Gandalf's fall, emerges from the dark of the mines into the dim light of a world that feels less certain. The air is sharp with the scent of pine and the distant murmur of water, but the weight of loss presses against them heavier than stone. Frodo the ring-bearer walks with steps that falter, the ring a cold fire against his chest, its whispers threading through his thoughts like a river carving stone. Sam, ever steadfast, watches him, his eyes a quiet vow. Aragorn, now the guide, bears the mantle of leadership with a stillness that hides his doubt. Legolas listens to the wind, seeking a harmony that eludes him. Gimli, his heart raw with grief for Balin and the lost glory of Khazad-dûm, grips his axe as if it could hold back the tide of sorrow. Boromir, torn between duty and desire, feels the ring's call like a pulse in his blood. Merry and Pippin, small but unyielding, carry their fear with a courage that defies the dark. The road leads to Lothlorien, the Golden Wood, where the light of the elves offers solace but not answers. Yet the question remains, a thread unbroken from the abyss. What strength did Gandalf find in Khazad-dûm? And what does it mean to carry on when the light seems lost? The path to Lothlorien is not merely a journey through Middle-earth, but a passage through the soul's own shadows. The land is hushed, the trees ancient and watchful, their roots deep as memory. The fellowship moves in silence, each step a defiance of despair, each breath a refusal to yield. Frodo feels the ring's weight grow, not as a physical burden, but as a presence, a shadow that clings to his thoughts, promising power, promising rest, promising an end to fear. Temptation in Tolkien's world is not a serpent's hiss, but a mirror showing the heart its own desires. The ring does not speak of evil, but of good, of saving the Shire, of sparing his friends, of bearing the burden alone. Yet to yield is to lose not just the world, but himself. Sam sees the change in Frodo, though he does not name it. His strength is not in wisdom or might, but in loyalty, a love that does not falter even when the path is dark. "You don't need to do this alone, Mr. Frodo," he says, his voice soft but firm, like the earth beneath their feet. Sam's words are not a solution, but a reminder that even in the deepest shadow, there is a hand to hold, a heart to share the load. This is not a strength that conquers, but one that endures, a light that burns steady when the storm rages. Aragorn, now leading the fellowship, feels the weight of Gandalf's absence like a cloak of stone. He is Isildur's heir, a king in waiting, yet the crown he shuns is not merely a circlet of gold, but a legacy of failure. Isildur, who took the ring and fell to its power, haunts Aragorn's steps. To lead is to bear the past, to carry the sins of those who came before. In Moria, Gandalf stood against the Balrog, not for glory, but for time for the fellowship to escape, time for the world to breathe. Aragorn too must stand not for a throne, but for those who follow. His strength is not in certainty, but in doubt, in the choice to move forward when the path is unclear, to hold the light when his own heart wavers. The Golden Wood appears like a dream, its trees aglow with a light that is both gentle and fierce. Lothlorien, the heart of elvenkind, is a place of beauty and sorrow where time seems to pause yet carries the weight of ages. The Lady Galadriel and Lord Celeborn greet the fellowship, their eyes piercing as stars, their voices a song of wisdom and loss. Galadriel, bearer of Nenya. The ring of water is a mirror of the soul, seeing what lies hidden, reflecting what might be. To stand before her is to stand before truth, unadorned and unrelenting. Frodo meets her gaze, and the ring trembles as if it knows her power. Galadriel speaks not of the ring, but of the heart of the fear that gnaws, the hope that falters, the burden that grows. To bear a ring of power is to be alone, she says, her voice a thread of light in the dark. Yet her words are not despair, but recognition. Loneliness is not the absence of others, but the weight of a choice that cannot be shared. Frodo's strength is not in his solitude, but in his refusal to yield to it, to carry the ring, knowing it may break him, yet walking on. Galadriel's mirror, a basin of water that shows what was, what is, and what may yet be, is a temptation of its own. To look is to risk despair, to see a future that cannot be changed, a past that cannot be undone. Frodo looks and sees the Shire burning its green hills turn to ash. He sees Gandalf's fall, the Balrog's flame, the endless dark. Yet he sees, too, a glimmer of hope, a light that endures, a path that continues. The mirror does not lie, but it does not command. To see the dark and still choose the light is a strength that Gandalf knew, a strength that Frodo must find. Boromir, too, faces Galadriel, though he does not speak of it. Her eyes see his struggle, the war between his honor and his desire. The ring calls to him not as a weapon, but as a shield, a way to save Gondor, to honor his father, to prove his worth. Boromir's temptation is not greed, but duty twisted by the ring's cunning. To want to do good to protect what is loved is a noble thing, yet the ring turns nobility to ruin. Boromir's strength is not in his sword, but in his heart's battle, a fight not against orcs, but against himself. The Fellowship rests in Lothlorien, but rest is not peace. The light of the elves is a balm, yet it reveals the scars it cannot heal. Gimli, who mourned in Moria, finds solace in Galadriel's grace. She gives him 3 strands of her hair, a gift that humbles him, a light that softens his grief. For Gimli, Lothlorien is not just a refuge, but a revelation that beauty endures even in a world of loss. His strength is not in his axe, but in his capacity to love, to honor what is fleeting, to carry the memory of light into the dark. Legolas, whose heart is bound to the woods, feels the sorrow of Lothlorien's fading. The elves are leaving Middle-earth, their light dimming as the age of men dawns. To love a world that changes, to fight for a land that will forget you, is a burden the elves know well. Legolas's strength is not in his bow, but in his silence, a quiet acceptance of what must be a song that lingers when the singer is gone. Merry and Pippin. The youngest of the Fellowship find wonder in Lothlorien, yet feel the weight of their smallness. They are hobbits far from home, bound to a quest greater than themselves. Yet their strength is not in their size, but in their spirit, in the laughter that defies despair, the loyalty that binds them to their friends. To be small in a vast world, to stand when giants fall, is a courage that Gandalf saw, a courage that shines in the dark. The Fellowship departs Lothlorien, their hearts heavier yet lighter, their purpose clearer yet more daunting. Galadriel's gifts: a cloak for each, a phial of light for Frodo, a bow for Legolas, a belt for Boromir, are not merely tools but symbols. They are reminders that strength is not in the gift, but in the giver, in the love that binds the Fellowship to the world. The phial filled with the light of Arundel's star is a beacon for Frodo, a promise that light endures even in the deepest shadow. It is a light that Gandalf carried, a light that he found in Khazad-dûm. The river Anduin carries them south, its waters a mirror of the sky, its current a reminder of time's unyielding flow. The Fellowship is silent, each member lost in thought, each heart wrestling with its own shadow. Frodo feels the ring's pull grow stronger, its whispers a tide that threatens to drown him. Sam watches, his heart a steady flame. Aragorn steers the boats, his eyes on the horizon, his thoughts on the path ahead. Legolas listens to the river's song. Gimli grips his axe. Boromir clenches his fists. Merry and Pippin hold each other's gaze. The world is vast. The dark is deep, yet they move forward bound by a purpose they cannot fully name. What does it mean to hope when hope seems a fool's dream? In Moria, Gandalf faced the Balrog not for victory, but for time. In Lothlorien, the Fellowship found rest, not to forget, but to remember. Hope in Tolkien's world is not a promise of triumph, but a refusal to despair. It is the light of a star in a storm, the song of a bird in the dark, the hand of a friend when the road is long. Gandalf's strength was not in his staff, but in his heart, in the fire that burned when all seemed lost, in the silence that held faith, in the sacrifice that gave others time. The river carries them toward Amon Hen, the hill of sight where choices will be made, where the Fellowship will break. Boromir's struggle reaches its peak, his heart torn between duty and desire. Frodo, alone with the ring, feels the weight of a world he cannot save. Yet in this moment, the strength of Gandalf's sacrifice echoes a reminder that to stand against the dark is not to win, but to endure, to carry the light when the shadow falls, to walk on when the heart falters. The tale is not ended, but woven a thread in the tapestry of Middle-earth. The Fellowship is broken, yet not defeated, scattered, yet not lost. Frodo and Sam walk alone the ring, a fire between them, the phial of Galadriel, a star in their hands. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli pursue a different path, their hearts bound to Merry and Pippin, their purpose a vow unbroken. Boromir's fate is a wound, yet his struggle is a mirror of the human heart, a reminder that strength is not in perfection, but in the fight to rise. What strength did Gandalf find in Khazad-dûm? It was the strength to fall and rise, to face the dark and hold the light, to sacrifice for a world that might not remember. It is a strength that Frodo carries, that Sam kindles, that Aragorn seeks, that Legolas sings, that Gimli honors, that Merry and Pippin defy, that Boromir wrestles. It is a strength that lives in the heart, a fire that burns in the silence, a song that echoes through the ages. And so we walk on into the shadow, seeking the light that endures, the strength that Gandalf found not to conquer, but to carry on. The river Anduin flows on its waters, a ceaseless hymn to time, carrying the echoes of choices made and unmade. The fellowship, once nine, is now fractured, its threads pulled apart by the weight of the ring and the frailty of hearts. Frodo and Sam, two small figures against the vastness of Middle-earth, tread a lonely path eastward. The ring a cold star at Frodo's breast, its whispers a tide that erodes his will. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, bound by loyalty and grief, pursue the orcs who have taken Merry and Pippin their steps, a defiance of despair. Boromir's fall at Amon Hen is a wound still raw, his struggle with the ring, a mirror of the soul's own shadows. The world grows darker, the shadow of Sauron lengthening across the land. Yet the question lingers, a light that does not fade. What strength did Gandalf find in Khazad-dûm, and what does it mean to carry on when hope is a whisper in the storm? The land beyond the Anduin is harsh, its stones sharp with silence, its hills scarred by the memory of ancient wars. Frodo walks as if in a dream, each step heavier than the last, the ring a burden that bends his spirit more than his body. Its voice is not loud, but insidious, threading through his thoughts like mist through reeds. It promises power not to destroy, but to save, to spare the Shire, to shield his friends, to end the fear that gnaws at his heart. Temptation is not a shout, but a sigh, a quiet space where doubt takes root. Frodo's fear is not of death, but of failure, of being too small, too weak to bear the weight of the world's hope. Yet he walks, his small frame a rebellion against the dark, his heart a fragile flame. Sam, ever at his side, carries no ring, but a burden just as heavy, the love that binds him to Frodo, the vow to see him through. His strength is not in wisdom or might, but in the ordinary, in the memory of the Shire's green fields, in the taste of bread shared by a fire, in the stubborn refusal to let go. "I can't carry it for you, Mr. Frodo," he says, his voice steady as stone, "but I can carry you." These words are not a solution, but a truth, that strength is not in bearing all things alone, but in the hand that reaches out, the heart that stays. Sam's courage is a quiet thing, a root that holds fast when the storm rages, a light that burns when the dark is deepest. Far to the west, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli run across the plains of Rohan, their hearts fixed on Merry and Pippin, their purpose a fire that drives them beyond exhaustion. Aragorn, now the leader, feels the weight of Gandalf's absence like a shadow he cannot outrun. He is Isildur's heir, a king by blood, yet the legacy he carries is not one of glory, but of failure. Isildur, who took the ring and fell to its power, is a ghost in Aragorn's heart, a reminder that even the strong may falter. To lead is to bear the past, to walk a path stained by the choices of those who came before. Aragorn's strength is not in his sword, but in his doubt, in the choice to run, when his heart questions, to fight, when his hope wavers, to stand when the world trembles. Legolas, whose eyes see far, runs with a grace that belies his sorrow. The world is changing, the light of the elves fading as the age of men dawns. To love a land that will forget you, to fight for a world that will outlive you, is a burden the elves know well. Legolas's strength is not in his bow, but in his silence, a quiet acceptance of what must be a song that lingers when the singer is gone. He listens to the wind, seeking a harmony that is not there yet. His steps do not falter. To run is to hope not for victory, but for meaning. Gimli, son of Gloin, runs with a heart heavy with grief and pride. Moria's fall is a wound that does not heal, a legacy of greed and loss that he carries in his bones. Yet in Lothlorien he found a light in Galadriel's grace, a beauty that softened his sorrow. His strength is not in his axe, but in his memory, in the love that honors what is lost, in the vow to fight for what remains. Gimli's heart is a forge, tempering grief into resolve, sorrow into fire. To run is to carry the past, not as a burden, but as a flame. Merry and Pippin, captives of the orcs, stumble through the dark, their small bodies bruised but unbowed. They are hobbits far from the Shire, yet their spirit is a light that the orcs cannot extinguish. Merry, with his quick mind, watches for a chance, his courage a spark in the gloom. Pippin, with his stubborn heart, clings to hope, his laughter a defiance of despair. Their strength is not in their size, but in their bond, in the love that ties them to each other, to Frodo, to the world they left behind. To be small in a vast darkness, to hold fast when giants fall, is a courage that Gandalf saw, a courage that shines in the shadow. The plains of Rohan stretch wide, their grasses whispering of a kingdom fraying at the edges. Theoden, king of the Rittermark, sits in his hall, his heart clouded by the whispers of Wormtongue, his spirit bent by the shadow of Saruman. The world is at war, not just with swords, but with despair, a tide that erodes hope, that whispers of surrender. Yet into this darkness comes a light, not new, but reborn. Gandalf, once the gray, now the white, rides with a fire that burns through the gloom. His fall in Moria was not an end, but a passage, a journey through fire and water, through darkness and silence, to a strength that transcends the mortal frame. What did Gandalf find in Khazad-dûm? In the abyss, where the Balrog's flame was a mirror of his own fire, he faced not just a foe, but a truth that strength is not in power, but in purpose, not in victory, but in endurance. The Balrog was a shadow of the world's first rebellion, a flame that sought to unmake. Gandalf, in standing against it, became more than a wizard. He became a beacon, a light that burns when all seems lost. His return is not a triumph, but a revelation, that the heart that dares to fall may rise, that the light that falters may shine anew. In Meduseld, the golden hall of Rohan, Gandalf confronts Theoden not with force but with truth. The king is old, his spirit weary, his hope dimmed by Wormtongue's lies. Your hands would remember their old strength better if they grasped your sword. Gandalf says, his voice a thunder that shakes the heart. To rouse a king is not to command, but to remind, to call forth the fire that sleeps in the soul. Theoden rises, not as a young warrior, but as a man who remembers who he is. His strength is not in his years, but in his choice to ride, to fight, to stand, when the shadow falls. The Rohirrim, stirred by their king, prepare for war, their horns a song of defiance. Yet Gandalf's path leads elsewhere, to the Ents of Fangorn, to the shepherds of the trees who have slumbered too long. Treebeard, ancient and slow, carries the weight of ages, his voice a rumble of roots and stone. To wake an Ent is to wake the earth itself, to stir a force older than the wars of men. Gandalf's strength is not in his words, but in his presence, in the fire that kindles hope, in the light that calls the weary to rise. Meanwhile, Frodo and Sam wander the bleak hills of Emyn Muil, their path a maze of stone and shadow. The ring grows heavier, its pull stronger, yet Frodo's heart clings to the memory of Gandalf's sacrifice, to the file of Galadriel's light, to Sam's unwavering loyalty. They meet Gollum, a creature broken by the ring, his soul a twisted mirror of what Frodo might become. Gollum's hunger is a warning, his pity a spark of hope. To spare him is not weakness but mercy, a strength that Gandalf knew, a strength that sees the light even in the darkest heart. Gollum leads them his steps, a dance of cunning and despair. Frodo's trust in him is not naivety but faith, not in Gollum's goodness, but in the possibility of redemption. Sam watches his heart torn between suspicion and loyalty, his hand never far from his sword. The journey to Mordor is not just a path through stone, but through the soul, through fear, through temptation, through the silence that threatens to swallow hope. Frodo's strength is not in his will, but in his heart, in the choice to walk when the dark is deepest, to carry the light when the shadow falls. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli find Merry and Pippin in Fangorn, freed by the Ents, their small courage a spark that stirs the forest. The Ents march their wrath, a tide that breaks the power of Saruman. The world is at war, yet the war is not the heart of this tale. It is the choices made in the dark, the hands that reach out, the hearts that hold fast. Gandalf now the White rides to Helm's Deep, where the Rohirrim will stand against the tide of orcs. His light is a beacon, his staff a flame, yet his strength is not in his power, but in his purpose to kindle hope, to call the weary to rise, to stand when the shadow falls. What does it mean to hope when the world trembles? In Moria, Gandalf faced the Balrog not for glory, but for time. In Lothlorien, the Fellowship found rest not to forget, but to remember. In Rohan, Gandalf roused a king, not to conquer but to stand. Hope is not a promise of victory, but a refusal to despair, a light that burns in the storm, a song that echoes in the dark, a hand that holds fast when the heart falters. Gandalf's strength was not in his staff, but in his heart, in the fire that burned when all seemed lost, in the silence that held faith, in the sacrifice that gave others time. The tale weaves on a thread in the tapestry of Middle-earth. Frodo and Sam walk toward Mordor the Ring, a fire between them, Gollum a shadow at their heels. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli ride to war, their hearts bound to Merry and Pippin, their purpose a vow unbroken. Gandalf the White shines in the dark, a light that does not falter. The world is vast, the shadow deep, yet they carry on bound by a strength that is not their own, a strength that Gandalf found in Khazad-dûm, a strength that burns in the heart, a strength that sings in the silence. And so we walk on into the shadow, seeking the light that endures, the strength that carries on. The shadow lengthens across Middle-earth, a tide of darkness that whispers of endings. The air is thick with the scent of ash and iron, the earth trembling under the weight of war's approach. Frodo and Sam, two small figures in a world of stone and sorrow, press onward through the jagged wastes of Muil the Ring. A cold fire at Frodo's heart, its voice a ceaseless murmur of power and despair. Gollum, their uneasy guide, slinks ahead, his eyes glinting with hunger and fear, a fractured mirror of the ring's ruin. Far to the west, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli ride with the Rohirrim toward Helm's Deep, where the horns of war sound a defiant note against the orc hordes of Saruman. Merry and Pippin, carried by the wrath of the Ents, witness the breaking of Isengard, their small courage a spark in the storm. Gandalf, now the White, shines like a star in the gathering dark, his presence a flame that kindles hope where despair takes root. Yet the question endures a thread unbroken through fire and shadow. What strength did Gandalf find in Khazad-dûm? And what does it mean to walk on when the light is but a memory? The path to Mordor is a wound in the earth, its stones sharp with silence, its air heavy with the weight of choices unmade. Frodo's steps are slow, each one a battle against the ring's pull, its whispers weaving through his thoughts like roots through stone. It does not promise evil, but salvation. A world spared, a shire untouched, a burden lifted. Yet its promises are lies cloaked in the guise of hope. Frodo's fear is not of the orcs or the eye, but of himself, of the moment when his will falters, when the ring's voice becomes his own. To bear it is to walk alone, even with Sam at his side, for the ring is a solitude that no hand can share. His strength is not in his body, frail and worn, but in his heart, in the small, stubborn spark that refuses to yield, that clings to the memory of Gandalf's light, of Galadriel's star, of the Shire's green hills. Sam steadfast as the earth walks with Frodo, his eyes never straying from his friend. His burden is not the ring, but the love that binds him to Frodo, a love that sees the shadow in Frodo's eyes, that feels the weight of his silence, yet does not turn away. Sam's strength is not in grand deeds, but in the ordinary, in the memory of a garden, in the weight of a cooking pan, in the quiet vow to never leave. "We're in this together, Mr. Frodo," he says, his voice a thread of warmth in the cold. These words are not a cure, but a reminder that even in the deepest dark there is a hand to hold a heart to share the road. Sam's courage is a root that holds fast, a fire that burns steady when the storm rages. Gollum, their guide, is a shadow of what was a creature broken by the ring, his soul a ruin of hunger and loss. He is Smeagol and Gollum, torn between pity and malice, his heart a battleground where the ring's power lingers. Frodo sees in him a warning, a reflection of the path he might tread. Yet he spares Gollum not out of weakness but mercy, a mercy that Gandalf knew, a mercy that sees the spark of light even in the darkest heart. "You were not so different from a hobbit once, were you?" Frodo asks, his voice soft with sorrow. To show pity is not to trust, but to hope not for Gollum's redemption, but for the possibility of it. Frodo's strength is not in his certainty, but in his faith, in the belief that even the broken may be mended, that even the lost may be found. The hills of Muil give way to the dead marshes, a place of rot and memory, where the faces of the fallen stare from the water, their eyes empty yet unyielding. The marshes are not just a landscape, but a mirror of the soul, a place where the past clings, where loss whispers, where the heart is tested. Frodo feels the ring's weight grow, its voice louder in the silence of the marshes. Gollum leads them, his steps sure, but his heart divided, his eyes darting between Frodo and the ring. Sam watches his hand on his sword, his heart torn between loyalty and suspicion. The marshes are a trial, not of strength, but of endurance, of walking when the dark is deep, of holding the light when the shadow falls. Far to the west, the horns of Rohan sound as Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli ride to Helm's Deep, where the people of Theoden take their stand against Saruman's tide. The fortress is a bastion of stone, yet its strength is not in its walls, but in the hearts that defend it. Aragorn, Isildur's heir, feels the weight of his lineage, a legacy of failure that haunts his steps. To fight is to face not just orcs, but doubt the fear that he too may fall as Isildur did. His strength is not in his sword Andúril, but in his choice to stand when the night is darkest, to lead, when his heart questions, to hope, when despair looms. There is always hope, he says to a young boy, his voice steady, though his heart is not. These words are not a promise, but a defiance, a refusal to let the shadow win. Legolas, whose eyes pierce the dark, fights with a grace that belies his sorrow. The world is changing, the light of the elves fading as the age of men rises. To stand in Helm's Deep is to fight for a land that will forget him, to love a world that will outlive him. His strength is not in his bow, but in his silence, a quiet acceptance of what must be a song that lingers when the singer is gone. He draws his bow, his arrows a hymn to the light, yet his heart hears the fading music of the elves. To fight is to hope not for eternity, but for meaning. Gimli, son of Glóin, hews through the orcs with an axe that sings of Moria's lost glory. His heart is a forge tempering grief into resolve, sorrow into fire. The fall of Khazad-dûm is a wound that does not heal yet in Helm's Deep. He fights not for vengeance, but for honor, for the memory of his kin, for the light that Galadriel gave him. His strength is not in his might, but in his memory, in the love that honors what is lost, in the vow to fight for what remains. Let them come, he roars, his voice a thunder in the dark. To stand is to carry the past, not as a burden, but as a flame. The Battle of Helm's Deep is a storm of steel and shadow, the Rohirrim's courage a light against the tide. Gandalf the White rides at dawn with the horns of Fangorn, his staff a beacon, his presence a fire that breaks the orc hordes. His return is not a triumph, but a revelation that the heart that falls may rise, that the light that falters may shine anew. In Khazad-dûm he faced the Balrog not for glory, but for time. Time for the fellowship to escape, time for the world to breathe. In Helm's Deep he fights not to conquer, but to kindle a hope that burns when all seems lost, a strength that endures when the shadow falls. Merry and Pippin far from the battle stand with the Ents as Isengard falls, its towers broken by the wrath of the trees. Their small courage stirred Fangorn, their voices a spark that woke the earth. To be small in a vast world, to speak when giants sleep, is a strength that Gandalf saw, a strength that shines in the dark. Merry's mind is quick, his heart steady. Pippin's spirit is stubborn, his hope unyielding. Their strength is not in their size, but in their bond, in the love that ties them to each other, to Frodo, to the world they fight for. To stand with the Ents is to carry the Shire in their hearts, to hold the light when the shadow looms. In the dead marshes, Frodo stumbles, the ring's weight a chain that pulls him down. The faces in the water call to him their silence, a temptation to rest, to yield, to let go. Yet he rises, his hand clutching the phial of Galadriel, its light a star in the gloom. I am not alone, he whispers, his voice a thread of defiance. The phial is not just light, but memory, the memory of Gandalf's sacrifice, of Galadriel's grace, of Sam's loyalty. Frodo's strength is not in his will, but in his heart, in the choice to walk when the dark is deepest, to carry the light when the shadow falls. Gollum watches, his heart torn between Smeagol's pity and Gollum's hunger. The ring is his precious, his ruin, his god. Yet Frodo's mercy stirs something in him, a spark of what was lost. To guide them is to walk a knife's edge, his soul a battleground where light and shadow clash. Sam sees the danger, his heart a shield for Frodo, yet even he feels the weight of pity. To spare Gollum is not to trust, but to hope not for his goodness, but for the possibility of it. The marshes test them all, not with swords, but with silence, with the choice to carry on when the heart falters. The world is at war, yet the war is not the heart of this tale. It is the choices made in the dark, the hands that reach out, the hearts that hold fast. Gandalf's strength in Khazad-dûm was not in his staff, but in his heart, in the fire that burned when all seemed lost, in the silence that held faith, in the sacrifice that gave others time. In Helm's Deep he kindles hope, in the marshes Frodo carries it, in Fangorn Merry and Pippin spark it. The shadow is deep, yet the light endures not as a promise of victory, but as a refusal to despair. Frodo and Sam emerge from the marshes, their path leading to Ithilien, a land of green and water, yet shadowed by Mordor's gaze. Gollum leads them, his heart a storm of hunger and fear. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli ride from Helm's Deep. Their hearts turn to Gondor, where the war grows darker. Merry and Pippin with the Ents carry the memory of Isengard's fall, their small steps a thread in the tapestry. Gandalf the White shines in the storm, his light a beacon for the weary. The world is vast, the shadow deep, yet they walk on bound by a strength that is not their own, a strength that Gandalf found in Khazad-dûm, a strength that burns in the heart, a strength that sings in the silence. What does it mean to hope when the world trembles? Hope is not a shield against fear, but a light that burns through it, a star in the storm, a song in the dark, a hand that holds fast when the heart falters. Gandalf's strength was not in his power, but in his purpose to stand when the shadow falls, to fall and rise again, to carry the light when the dark is deepest. It is a strength that Frodo carries, that Sam kindles, that Aragorn seeks, that Legolas sings, that Gimli honors, that Merry and Pippin defy, that Gollum wrestles. The tale weaves on a thread in the tapestry of Middle-earth, a song that echoes through the ages. And so we walk on into the shadow, seeking the light that endures, the strength that carries on. The shadow of Mordor looms closer, its weight a darkness that presses against the heart of the world. The air is sharp with the tang of sulfur, the earth scarred by the fires of industry and war. Frodo and Sam, two small wanderers in a land of ash and stone, tread the perilous path toward the Black Gate, the Ring. A cold ember at Frodo's breast, its whispers a ceaseless tide eroding his will. Gollum, their shadowed guide, slinks through the gloom, his heart a battlefield of pity and hunger, his eyes fixed on the ring that broke him. Far to the south, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli ride with Gandalf the White toward Gondor, where the city of Minas Tirith stands as a frail bulwark against Sauron's tide. Merry, bound to the Rohirrim, and Pippin, now in the service of Denethor, carry their small courage into the heart of war. The world trembles, its light dimming, yet the question endures, a star in the void. What strength did Gandalf find in Khazad-dûm, and what does it mean to walk on when hope is but a whisper in the dark? The path to the Black Gate is a wound in the earth, its stones jagged with despair, its silence a weight heavier than any chain. Frodo's steps are faltering, each one a battle against the ring's pull, its voice threading through his thoughts like a river through stone. It promises not destruction but peace, a world spared, a shire untouched, a heart unburdened. Yet its promises are shadows cloaked in the guise of light. Frodo's fear is not of the orcs or the eye, but of the moment when his strength fails, when the ring's will becomes his own. To bear it is to walk a solitary road even with Sam at his side, for the ring is a loneliness that no hand can share. His strength is not in his frail body, but in his heart, in the small, stubborn spark that clings to the memory of Gandalf's fire, of Galadriel's star, of the Shire's quiet mornings. Sam, ever faithful, walks beside Frodo, his eyes a steady light in the gloom. His burden is not the ring, but the love that binds him to Frodo, a love that sees the shadow in his friend's eyes, that feels the weight of his silence, yet does not turn away. Sam's strength is not in lore or might, but in the ordinary, in the memory of a rose in bloom, in the weight of a loaf of bread, in the quiet vow to carry on. "There's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo," he says, his voice a thread of warmth in the cold, "and it's worth fighting for." These words are not a shield, but a reminder that even in the deepest dark, there is a hand to hold, a heart to share the road. Sam's courage is a root that holds fast, a fire that burns steady when the storm rages. Gollum, their guide, is a ghost of what was a creature twisted by the ring, his soul a ruin of hunger and loss. He is Smeagol and Gollum, torn between mercy and malice, his heart a storm where the ring's power lingers. Frodo's pity stirs him, a faint echo of the hobbit he once was, yet the ring's call is stronger, a hunger that gnaws at his bones. He leads them, his steps a dance of cunning and despair, his eyes darting between Frodo and the ring. Sam watches, his heart a shield for Frodo, his hand never far from his sword. Gollum's presence is a warning, a mirror of what Frodo might become, Yet Frodo's mercy endures not as trust, but as hope, a hope that even the broken may be mended. This is a strength Gandalf knew, a strength that sees the light in the darkest heart. The Black Gate looms before them, a wall of iron and shadow, its towers crowned with the malice of Sauron. It is not a door, but a challenge, a test of will, a question of courage. Frodo stands before it, the ring, a fire in his chest, its weight a chain that pulls him down. To turn back is to admit defeat. To go forward is to face despair. Gollum, trembling, speaks of another path, a secret way through the mountains, a stair to Cirith Ungol. His words are laced with deceit, yet Frodo chooses to follow not out of trust, but necessity. To choose the unknown is not weakness, but faith, of faith in the journey, in the light that endures, in the strength that Gandalf found in the abyss. Far to the south, Gandalf rides with Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli toward Minas Tirith, the White City, where the hope of men hangs by a thread. The city is a beacon, its towers gleaming in the dawn, yet its heart is shadowed by doubt. Denethor, steward of Gondor, sits in his high hall, his mind clouded by despair, his eyes fixed on the Palantir that shows him only ruin. Gandalf the White shines in the gloom, his staff a light that pierces the dark, yet his strength is not in his power, but in his purpose to kindle hope, to rouse the weary, to stand when the shadow falls. We cannot choose the time we live in, he tells Pippin, who stands small and brave in the city's service, only what to do with the time given us. These words are not a command, but a truth that strength is not in changing the world, but in choosing to fight for it. Pippin, a hobbit far from home, carries his courage like a badge, his heart a spark in the storm. To serve Gondor is to stand in a world of giants, to face a war that dwarfs his small frame. Yet his strength is not in his sword, but in his spirit, in the laughter that defies despair, in the loyalty that binds him to Merry, to Frodo, to the world he loves. Pippin's presence in Minas Tirith is a reminder that even the smallest may change the course of fate, that even the weakest may bear the light. His courage is a thread in the tapestry, a light that Gandalf saw in Khazad-dûm. Merry, pledged to Theoden, rides with the Rohirrim, his heart torn between fear and resolve. The king, roused by Gandalf, is a flame rekindled, yet the shadow of war looms large. Merry's strength is not in his size, but in his will, in the choice to ride when his heart trembles, to stand when the world shakes. He clings to the memory of the Shire, of Pippin's laughter, of Frodo's quiet courage. To be small in a vast war, to fight when giants fall, is a strength that shines in the dark, a strength that Gandalf carried into the abyss. Aragorn, Isildur's heir, rides with a heart heavy with doubt. The path to Gondor is not just a road, but a reckoning, a confrontation with the legacy of failure that haunts his blood. Isildur, who took the ring and fell, is a ghost in Aragorn's heart, a warning of what he might become. Yet he rides his sword Andúril, a flame, reforged his will, a light that does not falter. His strength is not in his kingship, but in his choice to fight when doubt gnaws, to lead when hope wavers, to stand when the shadow falls. I do not know what strength is in my blood, he says, his voice steady, but I swear I will not let the White City fall. These words are not a vow of victory, but of endurance, a defiance of despair. Legolas, whose eyes see far, rides with a sorrow that does not show. The world is changing, the light of the elves fading as the age of men dawns. To fight for Gondor is to fight for a land that will forget him, to love a world that will outlive him. His strength is not in his bow, but in his silence, a quiet acceptance of what must be a song that lingers when the singer is gone. He draws his bow, his arrows a hymn to the light, yet his heart hears the fading music of the elves. To fight is to hope not for eternity, but for meaning. Gimli, son of Glóin, rides with a heart forged in grief and pride. Moria's fall is a wound that does not heal, yet the light of Galadriel's gift burns in his soul. His strength is not in his axe, but in his memory, in the love that honors what is lost, in the vow to fight for what remains. Faithless is he that says farewell when the road darkens, he says his voice a rumble of stone. To ride is to carry the past, not as a burden, but as a flame, a fire that burns when the dark is deepest. The war grows closer, its shadow a tide that threatens to drown the world. In Minas Tirith, Gandalf and Pippin face the despair of Denethor, whose heart is lost to the Palantir's lies. In Rohan, Merry and Theoden prepare to ride their courage a light against the storm. In the wastes of Mordor, Frodo and Sam follow Gollum toward Cirith Ungol the Ring, a fire that consumes the phial of Galadriel, a star that endures. The world is at war, yet the war is not the heart of this tale. It is the choices made in the dark, the hands that reach out, the hearts that hold fast. Frodo climbs the stairs of Cirith Ungol, his body weary, his heart fraying. The ring's weight is a chain, its voice a storm that drowns his thoughts. Gollum's betrayal looms a shadow. Frodo cannot see yet. Sam's presence is a shield, his loyalty a light that does not falter. To climb is to choose not victory but endurance, to walk when the dark is deepest, to carry the light when the shadow falls. Frodo's strength is not in his will but in his heart, in the memory of Gandalf's sacrifice, of Sam's love, of the Shire's quiet hope. Gandalf's strength in Khazad-dûm was not in his staff but in his heart, in the fire that burned when all seemed lost, in the silence that held faith, in the sacrifice that gave others time. In Minas Tirith he kindles hope. In Cirith Ungol Frodo carries it. In Rohan Merry and Theoden bear it. The shadow is deep, yet the light endures not as a promise of triumph, but as a refusal to despair. The tale weaves on a thread in the tapestry of Middle-earth, a song that echoes through the ages. And so we walk on into the shadow, seeking the light that endures, the strength that carries on. The shadow of Mordor deepens a darkness that clings to the bones of the world, its malice a weight that bends even the strongest hearts. The air is heavy with the reek of ash, the earth trembling under the march of armies and the fires of war. Frodo and Sam, two small figures lost in the jagged heart of Cirith Ungol, climb a path of stone and sorrow the ring, a cold flame at Frodo's breast, its whispers a tide that threatens to drown his soul. Gollum, their treacherous guide, has vanished into the dark, his betrayal a venom now poised to strike. Far to the south, Gandalf the White stands in Minas Tirith, a beacon against the gathering storm, while Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli tread the paths of the dead, seeking allies in a war that seems lost. Merry rides with the Rohirrim, his small heart a spark in the gloom, and Pippin in the White City faces the despair of Denethor. The world is breaking, its light fading, yet the question endures, a star in the void. What strength did Gandalf find in Khazad-dûm, and what does it mean to carry on when hope is but a flicker in the dark? The stairs of Cirith Ungol are a wound in the mountain, their stones sharp with silence, their shadows thick with dread. Frodo climbs his body frail, his heart fraying under the ring's relentless pull. Its voice is a serpent coiling through his thoughts, promising not ruin but rest, a world saved, a Shire spared, a burden lifted. Yet its promises are lies woven from the threads of his own desires. Frodo's fear is not of the orcs or the eye, but of the moment when his will breaks, when the ring's shadow becomes his own. To bear it is to walk alone, even with Sam at his side, for the ring is a solitude that no hand can touch. His strength is not in his trembling limbs, but in his heart, in the faint, stubborn spark that clings to the memory of Gandalf's fire, of Galadriel's star, of the Shire's quiet dawns. Sam ever steadfast climbs beside Frodo, his eyes a steady light in the gloom. His burden is not the ring, but the love that binds him to Frodo, a love that sees the shadow in his friend's eyes, that feels the weight of his silence, yet does not falter. Sam's strength is not in wisdom or might, but in the ordinary, in the memory of a lark's song, in the weight of a water skin, in the quiet vow to never leave. "We'll get through this, Mr. Frodo," he says, his voice a thread of warmth in the cold. These words are not a shield, but a reminder that even in the deepest dark, there is a hand to hold, a heart to share the road. Sam's courage is a root that holds fast, a fire that burns steady when the storm rages. Gollum's betrayal comes like a knife in the dark, his cunning a trap laid in the tunnel of Shelob's lair. The spider, a creature of ancient malice, is a shadow of the world's first hunger, her webs a mirror of the ring's deceit. Frodo, caught in her trap, falls to her venom, his body still, his light dimmed. Sam alone faces the horror, his small sword a defiance of despair. To fight Shelob is not just to battle a monster, but to confront the dark itself, the fear that Frodo is lost, that the quest is broken, that hope is a lie. Yet Sam fights his heart, a flame that does not flicker, his voice, a cry that echoes Gandalf's stand in Moria, "You shall not pass." His strength is not in his blade, but in his love, in the choice to stand when the world crumbles, to carry the light when the shadow falls. In Minas Tirith, Gandalf the White stands as a bulwark against despair, his staff a beacon in the gathering storm. The city is a fortress of stone, yet its heart is frail bent by Denethor's hopelessness. The steward lost to the Palantir's lies sees only ruin his mind, a mirror of the shadow he fears. Gandalf's strength is not in his power but in his purpose to kindle hope, to rouse the weary to stand when the shadow falls. There is no despair so absolute that it shuts out all light, he tells Pippin, his voice a thunder that shakes the heart. To rouse a city is not to command but to remind, to call forth the fire that sleeps in the soul. Gandalf's light is a memory of Khazad-dûm, where he faced the Balrog not for glory but for time for the world to breathe, time for hope to endure. Pippin, small and brave, stands in the White City, his heart a spark in the gloom. To serve Gondor is to face a war that dwarfs his hobbit frame, to stand in a world of giants where his sword seems a toy. Yet his strength is not in his blade but in his spirit, in the laughter that defies despair, in the loyalty that binds him to Merry, to Frodo, to the world he loves. Pippin's presence is a reminder that even the smallest may change the course of fate, that even the weakest may bear the light. His courage is a thread in the tapestry, a light that Gandalf carried into the abyss. Far to the west, Merry rides with the Rohirrim, his heart torn between fear and resolve. Theoden, king of the Mark, is a flame rekindled, yet the shadow of war looms large. Merry's strength is not in his size but in his will, in the choice to ride when his heart trembles, to stand when the world shakes. He clings to the memory of the Shire, of Pippin's laughter, of Frodo's quiet courage. To be small in a vast war, to fight when giants fall, is a strength that shines in the dark, a strength that Gandalf saw in Khazad-dûm. Merry's heart is a vow, a promise to fight for the light even when the shadow falls. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli tread the paths of the dead, a road of shadow and memory where the Oathbreakers linger, their souls bound by a curse unfulfilled. Aragorn, Isildur's heir, faces not just the dead, but his own legacy, a lineage stained by failure, a crown he does not seek. To call the dead to fight is to claim a kingship he doubts, to bear a burden he fears. His strength is not in his sword and Duril, but in his choice to walk the path when doubt gnaws, to lead when hope wavers, to stand when the shadow falls. "I am Isildur's heir," he says, his voice steady, though his heart is not. These words are not a claim but a defiance, a refusal to let the past define the future. Legolas, whose eyes pierce the dark, walks the paths with a sorrow that does not show. The world is changing, the light of the elves fading as the age of men dawns. To fight for a world that will forget him, to love a land that will outlive him, is a burden the elves know well. His strength is not in his bow, but in his silence, a quiet acceptance of what must be a song that lingers when the singer is gone. He walks his steps a hymn to the light, yet his heart hears the fading music of the elves. To fight is to hope not for eternity, but for meaning. Gimli, son of Glóin, walks with a heart forged in grief and pride. Moria's fall is a wound that does not heal, yet the light of Galadriel's gift burns in his soul. His strength is not in his axe, but in his memory, in the love that honors what is lost, in the vow to fight for what remains. "Let the dead come," he says, his voice a rumble of stone. To walk the paths is to carry the past, not as a burden but as a flame, a fire that burns when the dark is deepest. Gimli's heart is a forge tempering sorrow into resolve, grief into fire. In Cirith Ungol, Sam finds Frodo taken by orcs, his body bound in a tower of stone. The ring now in Sam's hands is a weight he never sought its voice, a whisper of power and despair. To carry it even for a moment is to feel its hunger, to know the shadow that Frodo bears. Yet Sam returns it, his heart a shield against temptation, his love a light that does not falter. To rescue Frodo is not just to save a friend, but to save the quest, to carry the hope that Gandalf died for in Khazad-dûm. Sam's strength is not in his will, but in his heart, in the choice to fight when the dark is deepest, to carry the light when the shadow falls. The war grows closer, its shadow a tide that threatens to drown the world. In Minas Tirith, Gandalf and Pippin face the siege of Sauron's armies, the city's walls trembling under the weight of despair. In Rohan, Merry and Theoden ride to the city's aid, their courage alight against the storm. In the paths of the dead, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli call the Oathbreakers their purpose, a vow unbroken. In Cirith Ungol, Frodo and Sam escape the ring, a fire between them, the phial of Galadriel, a star in their hands. The world is at war, yet the war is not the heart of this tale. It is the choices made in the dark, the hands that reach out, the hearts that hold fast. Frodo and Sam, now clad in orc gear, stumble through Mordor's ash-choked plains, their bodies weary, their hearts fraying. The ring's weight is a chain, its voice a storm that drowns Frodo's thoughts. Sam's presence is a shield, his loyalty a light that does not falter. To walk is to choose not victory but endurance, to carry the light when the shadow falls, to hope when despair looms. Their strength is not in their bodies but in their hearts, in the memory of Gandalf's sacrifice, of Sam's love, of the Shire's quiet hope. Gandalf's strength in Khazad-dûm was not in his staff but in his heart, in the fire that burned when all seemed lost, in the silence that held faith, in the sacrifice that gave others time. In Minas Tirith he kindles hope. In Cirith Ungol Sam carries it. In the paths of the dead, Aragorn bears it. The shadow is deep, yet the light endures, not as a promise of triumph, but as a refusal to despair. The tale weaves on a thread in the tapestry of Middle-earth, a song that echoes through the ages. And so we walk on into the shadow, seeking the light that endures, the strength that carries on. The shadow of Mordor is a wound in the world, its darkness, a weight that crushes hope and bends the soul. The air is choked with ash, the earth scarred by fire and iron, trembling under the march of armies. Frodo and Sam, two small figures lost in the desolate plains of Gorgoroth, stagger toward Mount Doom, the ring, a searing coal at Frodo's heart, its whispers a storm that drowns his will. Far to the south, Gandalf the White stands in Minas Tirith, a light against the tide of Sauron's armies, while Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli lead the host of the west to the Black Gate, a desperate gambit to draw the eye from Frodo's path. Merry, wounded but unbowed, lies among the Rohirrim and Pippin's small and steadfast fights in the streets of the White City. The world is breaking its light, a fragile thread, yet the question endures, a star in the void. What strength did Gandalf find in Khazad-dûm, and what does it mean to carry on when hope is but a whisper in the dark? The plains of Gorgoroth are a wasteland, their stones sharp with despair, their air thick with the reek of sulfur and ruin. Frodo's steps are a faltering prayer, each one a battle against the ring's relentless pull. Its voice is a tide washing through his thoughts, promising not destruction but salvation, a world spared, a Shire untouched, a heart unburdened. Yet its promises are shadows woven from his own fears and desires. Frodo's terror is not of the orcs or the Eye, but of himself, of the moment when his strength fails, when the ring's will becomes his own. To bear it is to walk a solitary road, even with Sam at his side. For the ring is a loneliness that no hand can share. His strength is not in his broken body, but in his heart, in the faint, stubborn spark that clings to the memory of Gandalf's fire, of Galadriel's star, of the Shire's quiet dawns. Sam, ever faithful, walks beside Frodo, his eyes a steady light in the gloom. His burden is not the ring, but the love that binds him to Frodo. A love that sees the shadow in his friend's eyes, that feels the weight of his silence, yet does not turn away. Sam's strength is not in lore or might, but in the ordinary, in the memory of a sunlit field, in the weight of a shared meal, in the quiet vow to never leave. "I'm here, Mr. Frodo," he says, his voice a thread of warmth in the cold. These words are not a shield, but a reminder that even in the deepest dark, there is a hand to hold a heart, to share the road. Sam's courage is a root that holds fast, a fire that burns steady when the storm rages. The mountain looms before them, its fires a wound in the sky, its slopes a trial of stone and ash. Frodo's body is frail, his heart fraying the ring, a chain that pulls him down. Sam, seeing his friends collapse, lifts him, carrying him as he promised his strength, a defiance of despair. To carry Frodo is not just to bear a body, but to bear the quest, to hold the hope that Gandalf died for in Khazad-dûm. Sam's heart is a flame that does not flicker his will, a light that pierces the dark. "Come on, Mr. Frodo," he whispers, his voice a song of endurance. To climb is to choose not victory but survival, to walk when the dark is deepest, to carry the light when the shadow falls. Far to the south, Minas Tirith burns under the siege of Sauron's armies, its walls crumbling, its people trembling. Gandalf the White stands in the streets, his staff a beacon, his voice a thunder that shakes the heart. The city is a fortress of stone, yet its strength is not in its towers, but in the souls that defend it. Gandalf's light is a memory of Khazad-dûm, where he faced the Balrog, not for glory, but for time, time for the Fellowship to escape, time for the world to breathe. His strength is not in his power, but in his purpose to kindle hope, to rouse the weary to stand when the shadow falls. "Hold your ground," he cries, his voice a call to the heart, a reminder that even in despair, there is light. Pippin, small and brave, fights in the streets of the White City, his sword a spark in the storm. To stand in Gondor is to face a war that dwarfs his hobbit frame, to wield a blade that seems frail against the tide of orcs. Yet his strength is not in his weapon, but in his spirit, in the laughter that defies despair, in the loyalty that binds him to Merry, to Frodo, to the world he loves. Pippin's courage is a thread in the tapestry, a light that Gandalf carried into the abyss. To fight is to hope not for victory, but for meaning, to stand when the world shakes, to carry the light when the shadow falls. Merry, wounded on the Pelennor fields, lies among the Rohirrim, his heart heavy with grief for Theoden, who fell as a king and a father. His small body is bruised, his arm numb from the Witch King's touch, yet his spirit is unbowed. Merry's strength is not in his size, but in his will, in the choice to ride when his heart trembled, to strike when the world shook. He clings to the memory of the Shire, of Pippin's laughter, of Frodo's quiet courage. To be small in a vast war, to fight when giants fall, is a strength that shines in the dark, a strength that Gandalf saw in Khazad-dûm. Merry's heart is a vow, a promise to fight for the light even when the shadow falls. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli lead the host of the West to the Black Gate, a desperate march to draw Sauron's eye from Frodo's path. Aragorn, Isildur's heir, carries the weight of a crown he does not seek, a legacy stained by failure. To stand before the gate is to face not just an army, but doubt the fear that he too may fall as Isildur did. His strength is not in his sword Andúril, but in his choice to lead when hope wavers, to fight when despair looms, to stand when the shadow falls. For Frodo, he says, his voice steady, his heart fixed on the small figure he cannot see. These words are not a vow of triumph, but of sacrifice, a defiance of despair, a light that burns for another's hope. Legolas, whose eyes pierce the dark, stands with a sorrow that does not show. The world is changing, the light of the elves fading as the age of men dawns. To fight at the Black Gate is to fight for a land that will forget him, to love a world that will outlive him. His strength is not in his bow, but in his silence, a quiet acceptance of what must be a song that lingers when the singer is gone. He draws his bow, his arrows a hymn to the light, yet his heart hears the fading music of the elves. To fight is to hope not for eternity, but for meaning. Gimli, son of Glóin, stands with a heart forged in grief and pride. Moria's fall is a wound that does not heal, yet the light of Galadriel's gift burns in his soul. His strength is not in his axe, but in his memory, in the love that honors what is lost, in the vow to fight for what remains. Let them come, he roars, his voice a rumble of stone. To stand at the gate is to carry the past, not as a burden but as a flame, a fire that burns when the dark is deepest. Gimli's heart is a forge tempering sorrow into resolve, grief into fire. In the heart of Mount Doom, Frodo reaches the cracks of Doom, the ring, a fire that consumes his soul. The chamber is a wound in the earth, its heat a mirror of the ring's hunger. Frodo stands at the edge, the ring in his hand, its voice no longer a whisper, but a command. "I do not choose to do this," he says, his voice breaking, and claims the ring for himself. The choice is not evil, but human, a surrender to the weight of fear, to the promise of power, to the hope of control. Yet Gollum, driven by his own hunger, wrests the ring from Frodo, falling into the fire, destroying the ring in a moment of unintended grace. The mountain shakes its fires, consuming the shadow that bound it. The destruction of the ring is not a triumph, but a revelation, a truth that strength is not in power, but in endurance, not in victory, but in sacrifice. Frodo's failure is not a fall, but a mirror of the heart's frailty, a reminder that even the strong may falter. Sam's love, Gollum's pity, Gandalf's sacrifice, these are the threads that weave the ring's end, a tapestry of light and shadow. The eye falls. Mordor crumbles and the world breathes, yet the cost is heavy. Frodo is broken, his heart scarred by the ring's weight, his soul a wound that does not heal. In the fields of Cormallen, the host of the West rejoices their voices, a song of hope reborn. Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Merry and Pippin gather their hearts turned to Frodo, and Sam, rescued from the ruin of Mordor. The reunion is not a resolution, but a moment, a light that burns in the memory, a song that lingers in the heart. Gandalf's strength in Khazad-dûm was not in his staff, but in his heart, in the fire that burned when all seemed lost, in the silence that held faith, in the sacrifice that gave others time. In Minas Tirith he kindled hope. In Mordor, Frodo and Sam carried it. At the Black Gate, Aragorn bore it. The shadow is broken, yet the light is not unmarred. Frodo's heart is heavy, his wounds deep the Shire, a memory he cannot fully return to. Sam's love is a light that endures, his hope a seed that will grow. Aragorn takes the crown, his doubt a shadow he names but does not fear. Legolas hears the sea, his heart turned to the west. Gimli carries Galadriel's light, his heart a forge of memory. Merry and Pippin, small but unbowed, carry the Shire in their laughter. The tale weaves on a thread in the tapestry of Middle-earth, a song that echoes through the ages. And so we walk on into the light, seeking the strength that Gandalf found, the strength that carries on. The shadow of Mordor has fallen. Its towers crumbled, its fires quenched, yet the world bears the scars of its reign. The air is soft with the scent of spring, the earth stirring with the promise of renewal. But the heart of Middle-earth carries a weight that lingers. Frodo and Sam, born from the ruin of Mount Doom by the eagles, rest in the fields of Cormallen, their small frames weary, their souls marked by the ring's fire. Gandalf the White. A light undimmed stands among the host of the West, his presence a beacon of hope reborn. Aragorn, now crowned in purpose, prepares to take the throne of Gondor, his heart still shadowed by doubt. Legolas and Gimli, bound by friendship, carry the memory of their trials, their eyes turned to a world both saved and changed. Merry and Pippin, small but unyielding, hold the laughter of the Shire in their hearts, their courage a spark that endures. The war is ended, yet the tale is not complete, for the question remains a star that does not fade. What strength did Gandalf find in Khazad-dûm, and what does it mean to carry on when the light is both a gift and a burden? The fields of Cormallen are a sea of green, their grasses whispering of peace, their skies bright with the promise of dawn. Frodo lies in a tent, his body frail, his heart a tapestry of wounds. The ring is gone, its fire extinguished, yet its shadow lingers, a memory of temptation, a scar of solitude, a whisper of what was lost. Frodo's eyes are distant, his thoughts turned inward where the Shire seems a dream too bright to touch. To bear the ring was to walk alone, to carry a burden that bent his soul to face a darkness that no light could fully banish. His strength was not in his will, frail and broken, but in his heart, in the small, stubborn spark that clung to hope, to Gandalf's fire, to Sam's love, to the memory of a world worth saving. Sam, ever at Frodo's side, sits with a quiet strength, his hands worn but steady, his eyes bright with the hope of home. His burden was not the ring, but the love that carried Frodo through Mordor's ash, a love that saw the shadow in his friend's heart, that felt the weight of his silence yet did not turn away. Sam's strength is not in grand deeds, but in the ordinary, in the memory of a garden's bloom, in the weight of a shared song, in the vow to see the quest through. "We did it, Mr. Frodo," he says, his voice soft but sure, a thread of warmth in the cool air. These words are not a triumph but a truth, that even in the aftermath of shadow, there is a hand to hold a heart to share the road. Sam's courage is a root that holds fast, a fire that burns steady when the world shifts. Gandalf the White stands among the host, his staff a light that does not falter, his eyes deep with the wisdom of ages. In Khazad-dûm he faced the Balrog, a shadow of the world's first rebellion, and found a strength not in power but in purpose, to stand when the dark was deepest, to fall and rise again, to sacrifice for time. His return was not a victory, but a revelation that the heart that dares to break may mend, that the light that falters may shine anew. In Cormallen he watches Frodo and Sam, his heart a mirror of their wounds and their hope. The task is done, he says, his voice a song of quiet joy, but the tale is not ended. To guide is not to heal all hurts, but to light the path, to carry the memory of Khazad-dûm's fire into the dawn. Aragorn Isildur's heir stands on the cusp of kingship, his heart heavy with the weight of a crown he never sought. The ring is gone, yet the shadow of Isildur's failure lingers, a legacy of temptation, a warning of frailty. To take the throne is to face not just a kingdom but himself, the doubt that gnaws, the fear that he may falter as his forebear did. His strength is not in his sword Andúril, nor in the crown he will wear, but in his choice to lead when his heart questions to love, when the world trembles to stand, when the shadow falls. The day may come when the courage of men fails. He says, his voice steady, but it is not this day. These words are not a promise of perfection, but a defiance of despair, a light that burns for a world reborn. Legolas, whose eyes see far, walks the fields with a sorrow that does not show. The world is saved yet. The light of the elves is fading, their song growing faint as the age of men dawns. To stand in Cormallen is to love a land that will forget him, to fight for a world that will outlive him. His strength is not in his bow, but in his silence, a quiet acceptance of what must be a song that lingers when the singer is gone. He listens to the wind, its voice, a whisper of the sea, and his heart turns westward. To walk is to hope not for eternity, but for meaning, a light that endures in the memory of Middle-earth. Gimli, son of Glóin, stands with a heart forged in grief and pride. Moria's fall is a wound that does not heal, yet the light of Galadriel's gift burns in his soul, a star that guides his steps. His strength is not in his axe, but in his memory, in the love that honors what is lost, in the vow to build what remains. We have done great deeds, he says, his voice a rumble of stone, but greater still is the work ahead. To stand in Cormallen is to carry the past, not as a burden but as a flame, a fire that burns when the world is new, a forge that tempers sorrow into resolve. Merry and Pippin's small but unyielding walk among the host, their laughter a defiance of the shadow's memory. Their wounds are deep, Merry's arm scarred by the Witch King's touch, Pippin's heart heavy with the weight of Gondor's siege, yet their spirits are bright, their bond a light that does not fade. Their strength is not in their size but in their courage, in the choice to ride when fear gripped them, to fight when giants fell, to laugh when the world wept. "We're going home," Pip Merry says, his voice warm with the Shire's promise. To be small in a vast world, to carry the light when the dark was deepest, is a strength that Gandalf saw in Khazad-dûm, a strength that shines in their eyes. The host of the West returns to Minas Tirith, where Aragorn is crowned Elisar, king of Gondor, his reign a dawn after a long night. The city is a beacon, its towers gleaming, yet its heart bears the scars of war. Aragorn's coronation is not a resolution, but a beginning, a promise to heal, to rebuild, to carry the light forward. He weds Arwen, daughter of Elrond, her choice to embrace mortality, a sacrifice that echoes Gandalf's fall. Her love is a light that burns in the shadow of loss, a star that guides Aragorn's heart. To rule is not to conquer, but to serve, to bear the weight of a kingdom, to honor the past, to hope for what may come. Frodo and Sam, with Merry and Pippin, turn their steps toward the Shire, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they have seen. The road is long, the world vast, yet they walk bound by a bond that no shadow could break. Gandalf rides with them, his presence a quiet fire, his words a song of wisdom and farewell. "I will not say, do not weep," he tells them, "for not all tears are an evil." These words are not a comfort but a truth, that grief is a thread in the tapestry, a light that shines in the heart's quiet places. The Shire. When they reach it, is not the home they left. Saruman, broken but spiteful, has scarred its green hills, its quiet lanes torn by greed and malice. The hobbits, no longer the innocents who left, rise to reclaim their home, their courage a flame kindled by their trials. Frodo, though weary, leads with a quiet strength, his heart turned to healing rather than vengeance. Sam, with his box of Galadriel's earth, plants new seeds, his hope a root that binds the Shire's future. Merry and Pippin, tall and bold, rally their kin, their laughter a defiance of despair. The Shire is restored, its light renewed, yet Frodo's heart remains heavy, his wounds too deep for the green hills to heal. Frodo's task is done, yet his soul is not at rest. The ring's shadow lingers, its memory a wound that wakes in the quiet of night. He writes his tale in the Red Book, his words a light that carries the quest forward, a song that echoes Gandalf's sacrifice. "I have been too deeply hurt, Sam," he says, his voice soft with sorrow. "To leave the Shire is not to flee, but to seek a peace that lies beyond the sea, a light that calls him west." His strength is not in staying, but in letting go, in the choice to pass the tale to others, to trust the world to Sam's steady hands. Sam, now a keeper of the Shire, marries Rosy Cotton, his heart a garden where hope blooms. His strength is not in his deeds, but in his roots, in the love that binds him to the earth, to Frodo, to the future. He plants the Malern seed, its silver leaves, a gift from Galadriel, a light that shines in the Shire's heart. To stay is not to forget, but to build, to carry the memory of Mordor's ash into a world of green, to honor the strength that Gandalf found in Khazad-dûm. Gandalf with Frodo and the elves journeys to the Grey Havens, where the sea sings of endings and beginnings. The ship is a light on the water, its sails a promise of rest. Gandalf's task is done, his fire passed to others, yet his strength endures in the memory of Khazad-dûm, where he faced the dark and rose. In the light he kindled which burns in Frodo and Sam and Aragorn. Go now in peace, he says, his voice a song that fades into the waves. To sail is not to end, but to carry on a light that shines beyond the world, a strength that echoes in the heart. Aragorn rules in Gondor, his reign a tapestry of hope and memory. Legolas and Gimli, bound by friendship, build new homes, their hearts turn to the work of healing. Merry and Pippin, heroes of the Shire, carry their laughter into the years, their small steps a light that does not fade. The world is new, yet its scars remain a reminder that strength is not in triumph but in endurance, not in power but in love. Gandalf's strength in Khazad-dûm was not in his staff but in his heart, in the fire that burned when all seemed lost, in the silence that held faith, in the sacrifice that gave others time. The tale weaves on a thread in the tapestry of Middle-earth, a song that lingers in the heart. Frodo sails his light a star in the west. Sam plants his hope a root in the earth. Aragorn rules his doubt, a shadow he names but does not fear. Legolas hears the sea. Gimli forges memory. Merry and Pippin laugh in the Shire's green. The shadow is gone, yet the light is not unmarred, a light that burns in the memory of Khazad-dûm, a strength that carries on. And so we walk on into the dawn, seeking the strength that Gandalf found, the strength that endures. The light of a new dawn touches Middle-earth, its rays soft upon a world both healed and scarred. The air carries the scent of blooming earth, of rivers unbound. Yet beneath the green lies the memory of ash, the echo of a shadow now faded. Frodo has sailed to the west, his heart seeking peace beyond the sea, his tale entrusted to Sam, whose hands now hold the Red Book, a chronicle of fire and hope. Samwise Gamgee, rooted in the Shire, tends his garden, his life, a quiet hymn to endurance. Aragorn, crowned Elisar, rules in Gondor, his reign a bridge between past and future, his heart bound to Arwen's mortal love. Legolas and Gimli, wanderers, still forge paths of friendship, their steps a song of memory and renewal. Merry and Pippin, heroes of the Shire, carry their laughter like a flame, their smallness a defiance of time's weight. The world turns its seasons gentle, yet the question lingers, a star that does not fade. What strength did Gandalf find in Khazad-dûm, and what does it mean to carry on when the light is both a gift and a burden? The Shire is green again, its hills rolling under a sky of endless blue, its lanes alive with the chatter of hobbits and the hum of life. Sam stands in his garden at Bag End, his hands deep in the earth, planting seeds that will grow into tomorrow. The Malern tree, a gift from Galadriel, rises silver and gold, its leaves a whisper of Lothlorien's light. Sam's heart is steady, his love for Rosie and their children a root that binds him to the world. Yet his thoughts often drift to Frodo, to the sea that carried him away, to the ring's shadow that lingers in memory. To live is not to forget, but to carry the pain of Mordor's ash, the weight of Frodo's wounds, the echo of Gandalf's fall. Sam's strength is not in his deeds, now legend, but in his quiet, in the choice to plant. When the world was broken to love, when the heart ached to hope, when the road was long. The Red Book lies on his table, its pages filled with Frodo's words, a tale of fire and shadow, of small hands that changed the world. Sam adds his own lines, his script simple but true, a testament to the ordinary courage that bore the ring to its end. I kept my promise, Mr. Frodo, he whispers, his voice a thread of warmth in the evening air. These words are not a boast, but a vow, a promise to carry the tale forward, to honor the strength that Gandalf found in Khazad-dûm. Sam's courage is a root that holds fast, a fire that burns steady in the heart of the Shire, a light that shines when the stars are hidden. In Gondor, Aragorn rules as Elisar, his crown a weight of hope and memory. Minas Tirith gleams its towers, a beacon in a world reborn, yet its stones bear the scars of war, its people the wounds of loss. Aragorn's heart is bound to Arwen, her choice to forsake immortality, a sacrifice that mirrors Gandalf's fall, a light that burns in the shadow of mortality. To rule is not to conquer, but to serve to heal the broken, to bridge the past, to carry the light forward. Aragorn's strength is not in his kingship, but in his doubt in the choice to lead, when his heart questions to love, when time is fleeting to stand, when the world shifts. We are not bound forever to the circles of the world. Arwen says her voice a song of grace, and beyond them is more than memory. These words are not a comfort, but a truth that love is a light that endures, a strength that carries on. Aragorn's reign is a tapestry woven from the threads of Middle-earth's peoples, men, elves, dwarves, hobbits. He walks the fields of Ithilien where Faramir and Éowyn build a new home, their love a light that heals the scars of war. He visits the glittering caves where Gimli's folk carve beauty from stone, their hammers a song of creation. He sails to the Grey Havens where Círdan's ships linger, a reminder of the elves' fading light. Aragorn's heart is a mirror of Gandalf's fire kindled in Khazad-dûm, a fire that burned when all seemed lost, a fire that shines in the dawn. To rule is to carry the past not as a chain, but as a flame, a light that guides the future. Legolas, whose heart hears the sea, wanders the woods of Ithilien, his steps a quiet hymn to a world he will leave. The elves are fading, their light dimming as the age of men rises, yet Legolas lingers bound by friendship and love. His strength is not in his bow, now laid aside, but in his silence, a quiet acceptance of what must be a song that lingers when the singer is gone. He plants trees in Gondor's scarred lands, their roots a promise of renewal, their leaves a whisper of Mirkwood's grace. The world is fair, he says, his voice soft with sorrow, yet fairer still is the sea. To walk is to hope not for eternity, but for meaning, a light that endures in the memory of Middle-earth, a strength that Gandalf carried into the abyss. Gimli, son of Glóin, labors in the glittering caves, his heart a forge of memory and pride. Moria's fall is a wound that does not heal. Yet the light of Galadriel's gift burns in his soul, a star that guides his hands. His strength is not in his axe now, a tool of creation, but in his love, in the vow to honor what was lost, to build what will endure. He carves halls of stone, their walls alive with the beauty of Durin's folk, their echoes, a song of Khazad-dûm's glory. "We are not done, my friend," he says to Legolas, his voice a rumble of stone. To build is to carry the past, not as a burden, but as a flame, a fire that burns when the world is new, a forge that tempers grief into hope. Merry and Pippin, now tall among hobbits, walk the Shire's lanes, their laughter a light that defies time's weight. Their wounds are healed, yet their hearts carry the memory of war. Merry's arm scarred by the Witch King, Pippin's soul touched by Gondor's fire. Their strength is not in their size, but in their spirit, in the choice to ride when fear gripped them, to fight when giants fell, to laugh when the world wept. They tell tales in the Green Dragon, their voices weaving the story of the ring of Frodo's burden, of Gandalf's fire. "We were part of something grand, weren't we?" Pippin says, his eyes bright with memory. To live is to carry the tale, to honor the small steps that changed the world, to shine with the strength that Gandalf found in Khazad-dûm. The Shire thrives, its fields golden, its people content. Yet Sam feels the pull of the sea, a whisper of Frodo's path. He visits the Grey Havens where Círdan stands, his beard white as foam, his eyes deep with the wisdom of ages. The sea is a song of endings and beginnings, its waves a promise of rest. Sam's heart is torn between the Shire's green and the West's light, between the life he builds and the friend he lost. "I'm not ready yet," he says, his voice steady but soft. To stay is not to forget, but to carry, to hold Frodo's tale, to plant the seeds of hope, to live the strength that Gandalf kindled in the dark. In Gondor, Aragorn's reign is a light that draws the scattered peoples of Middle-earth. He meets with Éomer, now king of Rohan, their friendship a bond forged in battle, their laughter a defiance of loss. He counsels with Faramir, whose wisdom heals Ithilien's scars, his heart a mirror of Gandalf's quiet fire. Aragorn's court is a place of song and memory, where bards sing of the ring of Frodo's burden, of the small hands that turned the wheel of fate. His strength is not in his crown, but in his heart, in the choice to rule with mercy, to love with courage, to carry the light when the world is new. Legolas and Gimli travel together, their friendship a light that shines in the shadow of change. They visit Fangorn, where Treebeard's voice rumbles like the earth, his eyes deep with the sorrow of fading forests. They walk the plains of Rohan, where the horses run free, their hooves a song of freedom. Their bond is a testament to the strength that Gandalf saw, a strength that binds across divides, that endures through time, that carries the memory of Khazad-dûm's fire. "We have seen wonders," Gimli says, his voice warm with pride. "To wander is to honor the past, to build the future, to shine with the light that does not fade." Merry and Pippin, now elders in the Shire, carry their tales to the young, their voices a bridge between then and now. They speak of Frodo, of Sam, of Gandalf, of the ring that bound them all. Their laughter is a light that does not dim their courage, a flame that does not falter. "We were small, but we were enough." Merry says, his eyes bright with the Shire's green. To tell the tale is to carry the strength that Gandalf found, a strength that burns in the heart, that shines in the dark, that endures when the world turns. Sam, years later, feels the sea's call grow stronger, his heart ready at last. He stands at the havens, the red book in his hands, his life a garden of memory and hope. The ship waits its sails white as starlight, its path a promise of reunion. "I'm coming, Mr. Frodo," he says, his voice a song of quiet joy. To sail is not to end, but to carry on a light that shines beyond the world, a strength that echoes in the heart. Sam's journey is a thread in the tapestry, a root that binds the Shire to the west, a fire that burns in the memory of Khazad-dûm. Aragorn's reign grows long, his hair silver, his eyes deep with the wisdom of years. He rules with Arwen at his side, their love, a light that does not fade, their sacrifice, a song that lingers. Legolas and Gimli, their wanderings done, build a ship, their hearts turn to the sea. Merry and Pippin, old and content, pass their tales to the Shire's children, their laughter, a flame that does not die. The world is new, yet its scars remain a reminder that strength is not in triumph, but in endurance, not in power, but in love. Gandalf's strength in Khazad-dûm was not in his staff, but in his heart, in the fire that burned when all seemed lost, in the silence that held faith, in the sacrifice that gave others time. The tale weaves on a thread in the tapestry of Middle-earth, a song that echoes through the ages. Sam sails his light, a star in the west. Aragorn rules his hope, a root in the earth. Legolas and Gimli sail their friendship, a flame that endures. Merry and Pippin laugh their courage, a light that shines. The shadow is gone, yet the light is not unmarred, a light that burns in the memory of Khazad-dûm, a strength that carries on. And so we walk on into the dawn, seeking the strength that Gandalf found, the strength that endures. The dawn of Middle-earth is a quiet hymn, its light weaving through the leaves of a world forever changed. The air is sweet with the breath of blooming fields, the earth humming with the pulse of seasons turning, yet beneath the green lies the memory of fire, the echo of a shadow now past. Samwise Gamgee has sailed to the west, his heart joined with Frodo's in the undying lands, the Red Book a legacy entrusted to the Shire's keeping. Aragorn King Elisar rules in Gondor, his reign a tapestry of peace and memory, his love for Arwen, a star that burns through the shadow of mortality. Legolas and Gimli, bound by a friendship forged in war, have sailed beyond the sea, their steps a song that fades into legend. Merry and Pippin, now old in the Shire, carry their tales in laughter and song, their smallness a light that time cannot dim. The world is new, its scars softened, yet the question remains a star that sings in the silence. What strength did Gandalf find in Khazad-dûm? And what does it mean to carry on when the light is a memory that both heals and wounds? The Shire is a cradle of green, its hills soft under the morning sun, its rivers a murmur of peace. Bag End stands as it always has, its door bright, its windows warm with the glow of hearth fires. The Malern tree. Galadriel's gift rises tall, its silver leaves a whisper of Lothlorien, its roots a testament to Sam's hope. The hobbits of the Shire live as they ever did, their days filled with the small joys of harvest and song. Yet the Red Book, now passed to Sam's children, holds a tale that binds them to a larger world. Elenor, Sam's daughter, reads its pages, her voice a thread of light, her heart stirred by the names of Frodo, Gandalf, and the Ring. To tell the tale is not to dwell in shadow, but to carry the light, to honor the small hands that turned the world, to sing of the strength that Gandalf found in Khazad-dûm. The Shire's children gather at Eleanor's feet, their eyes wide with wonder, their laughter a defiance of time's weight. Tell us of the wizard, they say, the one who fell and rose. Eleanor smiles, her voice soft but clear, and speaks of Gandalf, his staff, a beacon, his heart, a fire, his sacrifice, a light that burned when all seemed lost. The children listen, their hearts kindled, their smallness a mirror of the hobbits who walked to Mordor. To hear the tale is to carry it, to plant its seeds in the heart, to live the strength that endures. The Shire is not untouched by sorrow, its hills bear the scars of Saruman's spite, its people the memory of loss. Yet its light is a root that holds fast, a fire that burns in the ordinary, a song that echoes through the ages. In Gondor, Aragorn's reign is a beacon, its towers gleaming in a world reborn. Minas Tirith is a city of stone and light, its streets alive with the voices of men, its banners a promise of peace. Aragorn now old walks with Arwen their love, a flame that does not fade their steps, a quiet hymn to the years. His crown is not a weight, but a vow to heal the broken, to honor the past, to carry the light forward. The scars of war linger in the fields of Pelennor, where the earth remembers blood, in the hearts of those who lost kin to Sauron's tide. Yet Aragorn's strength is not in erasing sorrow, but in embracing it. We are made of our memories, he says, his voice steady, his eyes deep with wisdom. To rule is to carry the past not as a chain, but as a star, a light that guides the future, a strength that Gandalf kindled in the abyss. Arwen Evenstar of her people walks with a grace that belies her sorrow. Her choice to embrace mortality is a sacrifice that echoes Gandalf's fall, a light that burns in the shadow of loss, a love that shines when time is fleeting. She weaves tapestries in Gondor's halls, their threads telling of the ring of Frodo's burden, of the small hands that changed the world. Her strength is not in her immortality now forsaken, but in her heart, in the choice to love when the end is certain, to hope when the world shifts, to carry the light when the dark is gone. There is beauty in the fading, she says, her voice a song of quiet joy. To live is to carry the tale, to honor the strength that Gandalf found, to shine in the dawn. The world beyond Gondor thrives in its own way. Ithilien blooms under Faramir and Éowyn's care, its gardens a light that heals the scars of war. The glittering caves where Gimli's folk once labored are a marvel of stone, their halls a song of Durin's glory. Rohan's plains are alive with the thunder of hooves, Éomer's reign a fire that burns in Theoden's memory. The tales of the Ring are sung in every land, their words a thread that binds the peoples of Middle-earth. Yet the elves are gone, their light a memory, and the songs of men, their ships a whisper on the sea. The world is new, yet its heart carries the old, a heart that beats with the strength of Khazad-dûm, a heart that sings of Gandalf's fire. Merry and Pippin, now gray in the Shire, sit by the fire in Brandy Hall, their voices warm with memory. Their wounds are long healed, Merry's arms strong again, Pippin's heart light despite Gondor's fire, yet their tales carry the weight of what was. They speak of Frodo, whose quiet courage bore the ring, of Sam, whose love carried them home, of Gandalf, whose light burned in the dark. We were small, but we were there, Pippin says, his eyes bright with the Shire's green. Their laughter is a flame that does not die, their courage, a light that does not fade. To tell the tale is to carry the strength that Gandalf found, a strength that burns in the heart, that shines in the dark, that endures when the world turns. The Shire's lanes are alive with the footsteps of hobbits, their lives a quiet defiance of the Shadow's memory. The Red Book is read at gatherings, its pages a bridge between then and now. Eleanor's children and their children carry the tale, their voices a song of small hands and great deeds. The Malern tree stands as a sentinel, its leaves a light that speaks of Galadriel, of Frodo, of Sam. The Shire is not a place of grand heroes, but of quiet ones, those who plant, who love, who remember. Their strength is not in swords, but in roots, in the choice to live when the world was broken, to hope when the shadow fell, to carry the light when the dark was deep. In Gondor, Aragorn grows old, his hair silver, his eyes deep with the wisdom of years. He walks the fields with Arwen, their hands entwined, their love a star that does not fade. His reign is a tapestry of peace, yet he knows its end draws near. I am not afraid, he says, his voice soft but sure, for I have seen the light. To die is not to fall, but to pass a journey beyond the circles of the world, a light that shines in the memory of Middle-earth. Arwen's heart breaks, yet her strength endures in the choice to stay, to love, to carry the tale. She returns to Lothlorien, now empty, and lays down her life, her light a star that joins the west. The world turns its seasons gentle, its peoples thriving. Rohan's kings sing of Theoden, their horns afire in the dawn. Ithilion's gardens bloom. Faramir's wisdom, a light that endures. The glittering caves shine, Gimli's legacy, a song of stone. The Shire grows its hobbits, unaware of the weight their tales carry, yet their lives a testament to the strength that Gandalf found. The Red Book is copied, its words, a flame that does not die, its story, a root that binds the world. The elves are a memory, their light a song in the stars, yet their grace lingers in the Malorn's leaves, in Arwen's tapestries, in the sea's quiet call. Merry and Pippin, now at rest, are legends in the Shire, their names carved in the hearts of their kin. Their children carry their laughter, their tales a light that shines in the fire-lit evenings. The Shire is not untouched by time, its hills shift, its rivers carve new paths, yet its heart is steady, its light a root that holds fast. The hobbits sing of Frodo, of Sam, of Gandalf, their voices a thread in the tapestry, a song that echoes through the ages. To live is to carry the tale, to honor the strength that burned in Khazad-dûm, to shine in the dawn. The sea sings in the west, its waves a promise of rest, its light a star that calls the heart. Frodo and Sam reunited in the undying land's walk, with Gandalf their steps, a quiet hymn to the world they saved. The light of Arendelle shines above its glow, a memory of Galadriel's file, of Gandalf's staff, of the fire that burned in the abyss. Their hearts are healed, yet they carry the memory of Middle-earth, its green hills, its scarred fields, its small hands that changed the world. We did what we could. Frodo says, his voice soft with peace. To rest is not to forget, but to carry a light that shines beyond the world, a strength that echoes in the heart. The world of men grows, its cities rising, its songs changing. The tales of the ring become legend, then myth, their truth a whisper in the wind. Yet the Red Book endures, its pages a fire that does not fade, its words a root that binds the heart. The Shire's hobbits, Gondor's kings, Rohan's riders, they live, they love, they remember. The strength that Gandalf found in Khazad-dûm is not a flame that dies, but a light that passes from Frodo to Sam, from Aragorn to his heirs, from Merry and Pippin to the Shire's children. It is a strength that burns in the heart, that shines in the dark, that carries on when the world is new. The tale is not ended, but woven a thread in the tapestry of Middle-earth, a song that lingers in the silence. The shadow is gone, yet the light is not unmarred, a light that burns in the memory of Khazad-dûm, a light that shines in the ordinary, a light that endures in the heart. Frodo and Sam rest their light a star in the west. Aragorn and Arwen pass their love, a flame that does not die. Legolas and Gimli sail their friendship, a song that echoes. Merry and Pippin laugh their courage, a root in the earth. The world turns its seasons a hymn, its people a testament to the strength that Gandalf found, a strength that is not in power but in love, not in triumph but in endurance, not in the end but in the carrying on. And so the song fades, not into silence but into memory, a star that sings in the heart, a fire that burns in the quiet, a light that carries on. The strength that Gandalf found in Khazad-dûm is a whisper in the dawn, a root in the earth, a flame in the soul. It is the strength to stand when the shadow falls, to fall and rise again, to carry the light when the dark is deep. It is the strength of small hands, of quiet vows of hearts that dare to hope. And so we walk on into the light, into the silence, into the song, seeking the strength that endures, the strength that is Middle-earth's own.